Yo, yo, it's the Fields Bros. So, Death Note video number 2. This topic is going to be about a topic I don't really think is that big of a deal, but apparently it could be. There's people who think Nier potentially may have cheated at the end of this show, and I don't think he did at all, number one. Um, One, if you look at like Nier's personality, like he wanted to, outsmart Light. He wasn't trying to like. There's a point where I think Commander Rester suggested they just assassinate, him and deal with this whole Kira debacle, that way. And Nier's response was no. Like I forget the exact terminology he used, but he didn't feel like winning that way was a justifiable means of action. He wanted to win like El would win, and outsmart his opponent, completely. But that said, we are going to, entertain some of the possibilities. Like, obviously, we know following the kidnapping with Mello and Takeda, the result of that was the SBK was able to get their hands on the real notebook at that point. And, technically speaking, there would have been a window of opportunity that would have existed, technically, for Nier to do what people are saying he was doing. So after they obtained the notebook from, Mikami's screw up, they obviously took the notebook back to SBK HQ, and they didn't contact. It's not like they contacted, second L's group, Light's group, and told them that they had it. Obviously, that'd be stupid. But this entire time they did have it. So that last meeting, or excuse me, the last message, the last time that Light and Nier had a communication was post Takeda kidnapping. Nier was calling just to confirm that the meeting time has, indeed stayed the same. That the Mello debacle didn't change anything. And from Nier's perspective, if Light says, yes, he agrees that the meeting, has, no change. We've already talked about this. That's what we're going to do. Light saying that to Nier tells Nier that the second L has no idea that Mikami screwed up, number one, or he wouldn't agree to this meeting. If Light had known that, Mikami had compromised the final mission here, he would have had to, decline this final meeting with Nier and find some way to justify canceling this meeting at this point. Because, from the moment when Mikami was exposed the real notebook to Giovanni, basically that whole night, it wasn't until the next morning after the Takeda news, or Takeda's death was broadcast on the news, that, they didn't contact him until after that point. So they would have had, overnight, Nier would have had, I guess ample time to do something. And what we're talking about is Mikami's, odd, strange behavior at the end of the show. He stabs himself and, he bleeds out. Quite the epic death scene, I might add. But from my perspective, like, I never once viewed Mikami's actions as one who's being controlled. From my perspective, Mikami had just witnessed the collapse of his own god in front of his eyes. And that's what caused his, complete breakdown. You saw how Light broke down a few scenes later. Mikami was obsessed. Like, think of all the times, even when Mikami was, in contact with the actual Kira over the phone, like in that, one of the first meetings with Takeda that Light and Takeda had. The dude's got his hand on his heart while he's on the phone talking to Kira because he's so excited, I guess. Or humbled, however you want to look at that. He was clearly, in awe of Kira this entire time. He was chosen by to receive the Death Note. He peeks into that little crack in the door. He sees all these, names, in lifespans of all these people he's supposed to kill. But then he sees one dude who he doesn't see a lifespan for. From his perspective, this is God. Obviously Light owns a notebook, which is why his lifespan cannot be viewed. So what exactly would the cheating have been to, make Mikami overlook, the fact that the notebook's been tampered with, or, I'm trying to figure out what exactly Nier could have used Mikami to gain an advantage in this situation. Because from my perspective, if you're Nier and you have the real notebook, which obviously, if it wasn't confirmed in your own mind by the Takeda killing, it would have definitely been confirmed. Like, you see how Nier's wearing that mask of L in the final showdown? Why was he wearing that mask? It wasn't to, the whole purpose of that mask was to hide his reaction from seeing the Shinigami, in my opinion. And obviously, Light took that as, Nier's he thinks he's L. Like, he completely overlooked that point, because obviously he doesn't think anything is compromised. But if I'm Nier, and I have the real notebook, and I have to go to some weird location and meet up with the actual Kira, the one thing that I can't tell you how I'm going to react to is reacting to seeing a Shinigami. I might scream. I have no idea how I'm going to react to, seeing a Shinigami, which is why the mask is, all important. So as soon as the Japanese, second L's group showed up and they all walked into that warehouse, the very first thing, obviously Nier's going to see Ryuk standing there with them. So basically, as soon as you see that, you've confirmed, that you've won this little game here. And since you know that Light can't use the notebook that's at the task force because it's under lock and key, and being watched like a hawk, Aizo was carrying it, for a fact that you have the other notebook. It's on Nier, it's in his shirt. So there's really no need to try to control, Mikami or anything like that. You may as well just let the situation play itself out like it did. So the answer is, I think no. I don't think there was any reason for Nier to cheat, just for the fact that there's really no need to. And obviously, I don't think he's the type that would want to use Death Note. Like, he seems to, hate the whole idea of it. He views Kira as a murderer, blah, 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 blah. And I also believe that Nier has the utmost respect for L. And from his perspective, using the notebook might, irreversibly, that's something that L would have never done, obviously, is use that fiendish book. So, something Mello didn't give a shit about. Mello will do whatever it takes to, gain the upper hand. And like I said, back at right before this meeting in the warehouse, that final call that Nier made to Light, once Light accepted the final meeting post Takeda's kidnapping, Nier had nothing to worry about. Because if Light / L number 2 had, been aware that the final mission was going to be screwed and compromised already, if he knew Mikami screwed up, there's no way he would accept that meeting. So Light accepting the meeting, post Takeda confirms to Nier that he's won this game, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, I can acknowledge that, yeah, there would have been a window of opportunity would have been open, because there was a point when Nier would have had a notebook for, overnight before they met the next day or whatever with SPK, the meeting between them and the Japanese task force at that warehouse. So hope that debunks or answers, shed some light on that little situation. Take it easy, guys.